Alright, so here's the app. I'm going to click on that. It opens and it immediately takes me to the sign up page. Remember, this is not my main activity, but it saw that I was not logged in. So the only thing we want to check right now is this button. We click that and we go to the register page, and here the user can finally type in their details and get a new account. Alright, so let's add some code to our register activity. So what do we need? We need 4 edit texts and a button. Okay, edit text, username, email, password, and confirm pass. Let's call it pass. And then a button, create. Okay, inside the Java code, let's initialize these variables. So username is equals to edit text, find view by ID, r.id dot, what did I call it? I think it was username. Yes, username. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down Control and press D, and this will duplicate this line 4 times. So now I can just change username to email and this to email. Change this to password and this to password. And finally change this to confirm pass, and this, I believe I called it pass confirm. Yes, I did, pass confirm. Alright, now our button is create is equals to button find view by ID, r.id dot create. Something to note, I believe this current version of Android Studio does not require explicitly casting your views. Putting this edit text in brackets, or this button here in brackets before typing find view by ID, that's known as casting. But I think it's no longer required in this latest version. I just do it out of habit. So if you don't do it in yours and it works, that's totally fine. Alright, moving on. So we finally have a register activity, and we have linked our layout, all of these, to our Java code. So now let's finally register our user. So first I'm going to open my Firebase assistant. I'll go to authentication. I'm going to refresh my connection. As that's refreshing, let's go to the site itself. So here's my console for this particular project. Okay, it's saying it's connected. Let's sync it. Okay, so here's my console for this project. Remember, quite important, when you go to authentication, which is where I am, the first tab is users and the next tab is sign in method. You must tell Firebase exactly how you want to sign in. As you can see, mine is set to email and password, and I have enabled it. Okay, back to the code. Let's just give it a moment. Right, so that's connected. Now let's go through this list just as we did previously when we were checking whether someone was signed in. That was step 3, and it told us we needed to create a Firebase object, and in our onStart method we simply needed to get current user, and if this was null, then we know someone wasn't logged in. Now step 4, actually signing in. First, we can see that they're still using mauth, which is this, so we'll need another Firebase auth object in our class. Now you can go ahead and copy this, but I think it's good to type because it makes it second nature. So Firebase auth, I'll call mine auth. Let's make this private, it's just good practice. Okay, so let's see what it's telling us. To sign up, underneath sign up new users, it's telling us to create a new create account method, which takes in an email address and password, validates them, and then creates a new user with the create user with email and password method. So let's do all that. First, we need to put an Onclicklistener on our button. So create dot set Onclicklistener new Onclicklistener. So within our Onclicklistener, the first thing we should do is to validate what our user has put in. And the main thing we're validating in this case is whether this password is the same as this confirmation password. So I'm going to make string variables to hold all our details. So string email string, or I should start with the username. String user string is equals to username dot get text dot to string. Again, I'll just duplicate this. So change this to email and this to email. Change this to password and this to password. Rather, I change this to pass string, not password. And I'll change this one to pass confirm string and change this to confirm pass. Okay, so the first thing we're doing is making sure this and this is the same. So that's a simple if statement, and the condition is if pass string dot equals is the method that checks and it takes in the pass confirm string. So if this is true, then we can register the user. Now this is a method that we are yet to create, but it should take in the email, rather the email and the password. Okay, so I'm typing this out as if I've created this register user method, but I have not. So let's create that immediately. What you can do is you can hover over the method, then come to this red light bulb and click create method register user. Make sure you select register activity, and there it is. We have our method. And now within the method, we can now come back to our assistant and see what it tells us to do. So once again, you can copy or you can type. I choose to type. Auth dot create user with email and password is the very first one that shows up. As you can see here, they used mauth because their object name was mauth over here, but I called mine auth. So auth.create user with email and password. And before I go on, a very huge mistake that I just noticed I made. I've created the variable Firebase auth, private Firebase auth, but I have not initialized it. So here in my onCreate, I should type auth is equals to Firebase auth.getInstance. There we go. And congratulations to all those who are shouting at the screen saying you've forgotten to initialize your Firebase auth. Okay, so create user with email and password, and this simply takes in the email and the password, so we can just pass that directly in. Email string, pass string. Remember, these match up to these, which in turn match up to this and this. So if I were to terminate this line and leave it at that, it would work. It would create the user, and our Firebase console would recognize that a user has been created. However, I do not encourage that, because the next thing is to put an onCompleteListener, which is exactly what it sounds like. It will run when the task has completed. So let's add onCompleteListener, and we will terminate there. And within it, it takes the context. Our context is register activity dot this, and then we can type new onCompleteListener, and it will auto-generate everything for us. So as you can see from the assistant, they're doing a simple if statement to see whether the task is successful. We will do the exact same thing. If task dot is successful, and then I'll just put the else for now. I'll give it some code later on. So if it's successful, what do we want to do? We want to create a new Firebase user object. We'll call it user, just as they have done, and we'll say is equals to auth dot get current user. So now this variable will hold the details of the user that has just created a new account. Remember, back in the main activity, we did the exact same thing. Firebase user current user is equals to mauth.getCurrentUser, but in this case it was null because no one had logged in. But now if we were to write the exact same thing, we will actually have data because someone has just created the account and by default they are logged in. Okay, so as soon as they have created the account, we want to send them directly to the main activity. So let's write intent is equals to new intent register activity dot this main activity dot class, and then we start activity intent. For those of you who copied, you'll notice that after copying, this update UI method is highlighted red. That's because this is not an inbuilt method, as I mentioned before. Firebase expects you to create your own update UI, which would have something like what I've created right here. Okay, so just for the sake of having something within the else clause, I will create a simple toast, give it the context, which is register activity.this, and the message I will give the user is registration failed. Please try again. And finally, I'll tell Java how long I want it to show that, long. And after that, I can now show my toast, so dot show. Okay, so that's just something to show if it doesn't work. And I believe that is all. Yes, so let's run this and see if we have any errors.